Interesting reactions to yesterday's game. I think the fan base seems quite split as to how to frame that performance and result. It's the same with commentators and pundits. You've got Gary Neville being very positive. You've got Roy Keane being candid and harsh and sort of saying, yeah, on the ball, with the ball, United are all right, but without the ball, we're an easy team to play against, which is probably fair. You've got, I guess, big fan accounts like the United Stand going in harsh. Whether you like it or not, they've got 2 million subscribers. They are a big voice. And Goldbridge is the main guy on that, going in particularly harsh on the whole situation, not necessarily regarding yesterday, but sort of saying like the volume of games that we've lost is unacceptable and that we have to have higher standards. He doesn't see the style of play or a vision. He talks about 2 years of Ineos on Christmas Eve, which I think is worth coming back to a little bit later in the video. And he has someone else on his channel called Terry, who's got his own pretty big channel himself, but he comes and does some stuff with the United Stand, and he did a video this morning, and he's normally very, very pragmatic, very positive, but he wasn't about yesterday, and he wasn't about the situation in general. I'm not in the same stratosphere as those guys in terms of viewers and subscribers. Of course I'm not, but for me, I think normally I'm quite harsh. Probably, I think people might say I hold United to standards they're not capable of reaching anymore. But I was relatively happy with yesterday's performance. I think we were a glaring miss from Cunha away from getting a very, very well deserved point, and Villa did not lay a glove on us in that second half, apart from the goal that they scored. And there is definitely positives in the performances of the last 3 games. My question is, does that progress continue now? Do we continue to have the mental capacity to perhaps suffer in terms of results, but see the progress in the performance? And I'm talking from the perspective of the players. Are they brave enough to be able to go through perhaps not getting the results that they might feel like they deserve, but the shoots of recovery, and that those shoots of recovery enough to keep them motivated and keep them going and keep them moving in the right direction? I don't know. This team doesn't seem to be blessed with massive amounts of courage, I have to say. That's the next crossroads for me. I remember last season around sort of February time, we'd had a run where I think maybe we'd lost something like 3 or 4 games out of 15 or something like that in all competitions. A lot of draws. But I said then, we're starting to kind of see some semblance of what Amarim's trying to do. The squad had thinned out because of some injuries, and obviously letting players go in January on loan. And I said that the thinner the squad's got, the more resourceful he's had to be, the better it seems to be in terms of performance and results. And I think there's something about that happening here, is the squad's thinned out. He's being quite resourceful. They are looking a little bit better. I don't see his print on it particularly, but I see a team playing better football, and I see a team able to make cohesive attacks and some fluidity. And what that says to me about Amarim so far at United anyway is that perhaps he's quite a resourceful manager, almost like a striker. Sometimes you say striker when they've got too much time to think about it, they mess it up. I think with Amarim, when he's got a full squad of players, not that our squad's anywhere close to being very good, but he doesn't seem to make the right calls when he's got a lot of choices. When he has less choices, I think he's a relatively resourceful manager. In terms of performance, though, we've played all right in these last 3 games. But the big question is that just a little chink of light that then fades away because ultimately perhaps we don't get a result on Boxing Day, and the noise around the media and fan channels and all that type of stuff gets louder, and we can say it shouldn't make a difference, but I think it definitely does with United. And then does it just go back to as it was, or is this the first chinks of light and shoots of recovery towards something bigger? If I had to guess, I'd say it's the former, unfortunately, because we've seen it before with United. And by the way, this is bare minimum stuff I'm talking about. I don't even want to be having this conversation where I'm talking about Man United being able to play semi-cohesive, forward-thinking football as some kind of success criteria. But we have to be realistic. We've just finished 15th. And it's very rare you go from finishing 15th to then finishing, for example, top 4 playing swashbuckling, brilliant football. We have to walk before we can run on this. We didn't get all of the signings we needed in the summer. United are never going to do that with this ownership structure. It's always going to be, I think, we can have a little bit of what we need, but not everything. They can never do anything quickly enough. So therefore, you're not going to get huge improvements, but you'll get marginal improvements. And I think that's probably what we're seeing. Even marginal improvements from the rest of the season. I think we've had marginal improvements in these last 3 games from what we've seen prior to that. But as I say, can it be continued is the big question. Can Amrim, I guess, create something of that mentality in the dressing room that says, although maybe we're not getting results week in, week out, we're heading in the right direction, and you've got to be motivated to keep that going. You've got to be, as I mentioned the word before, courage. You've got to be courageous enough to believe that is some form of success criteria and forget the outside noise. Now, Amrim's not been able to create a subculture within the dressing room. He's not been able to create a siege mentality as yet. It doesn't mean he can't. But some fans thought yesterday was crap. Others think it was really good and we were a bit unlucky. Some are somewhere in the middle. I think it was decent and we were unlucky. In particular, when you consider we're missing 7 players. To Goldbridge's point that it's been 2 years on Christmas Eve of Ineos and the club's regressed, I completely agree. The bigger picture is we're going nowhere. Their appointment, Amrim, has been to this point absolutely a failure without question. No matter how much you might like the guy and how much there is mitigating circumstances, there's always going to be mitigating circumstances while we have this ownership structure for a United manager, but he's failed miserably. The criteria for success this season, by all accounts, is getting into Europe, and that at the moment is tentatively still available. It's a really poor league this year, and we have, what are we, 7th? And I think the next few games, we've got Newcastle at home, which is winnable, drawable, losable. And then you've got Wolves at home. You've got to win that. You just absolutely have to win that game. And then Leeds and Burnley after that. Leeds and Burnley are 2 newly promoted teams. So, on the face of it, we should be winning those games. So effectively, you could be looking at 9 points out of 12 over the next 4 games. But will we get that? If you do, I would imagine we probably would be around 6th or 5th going into sort of mid-January time, which we would have taken a snap your hand off of that. But will we get those results? And this is where one of the comments on my reaction yesterday said, if only we could win 3 or 4 games on the spin and get a sequence of results, the top 4 is absolutely available. I completely agree. But that if is the biggest word, isn't it? If we can do that, and so far there's no evidence to suggest we can. We won 3 games in a row in October. That's the only time in the last, I guess, 2 years that we've won 3 games in a row, or coming up for 2 years at least. So I don't think the team's got the ability to do it. I'll put it another way. I don't think the team's got the capacity to do it. I think it's got the ability to win 3 games in a row, but it doesn't seem to have that mental capacity to get through these moments of adversity. And as I said yesterday, one of the big problems we've got is we can play quite well. We can have the majority of a game, and a team doesn't have to work remotely hard to score goals against us. And that's a massive problem. And it goes back to near the start of the season, Burnley. I mean, Burnley are not notorious for scoring goals, and haven't been for the last however many years, really. Certainly under Scott Parker, even in the Championship, they didn't score that many goals. They were known for being very pragmatic. And they came to Old Trafford and we absolutely pulverised them into, I can't even remember how many shots. It was something like 30 shots. And they weren't like speculative, 25-yard punts. A lot of them were clear opportunities. And I think they had 2 or 3 shots and it was 3-2 and we relied on a goal in the 7th minute of injury time from Bruno Fernandes' penalty to win the game. So it goes back to then. We dominated that game. Arsenal's a bit different because Arsenal are a good team, but Arsenal on the first day of the season, we were far the better team that day. We lost 1-0. We're completely in control against Nottingham Forest. No danger. They scored 2 goals in 5 minutes. We're in control against Tottenham. No danger. They scored 2 goals in 10 minutes. Bournemouth the other day, I played them off the pitch in the first half. We go in with a narrow 2-1 lead and just after half time it's 2-2 and then the rest of the game unfolds as it unfolds. And yesterday we dominated the game by and large and looked relatively tight apart from the first few minutes of the game and we still concede 2 goals. When you're giving up goals so easily, of course that makes it an uphill task. So these next 4 games on paper, I think we should be getting 9 points. But if you're giving up goals against teams that have in some cases that I'm talking about, no real pedigree for scoring goals at all, well, mainly in Burnley's case, but you would look at the next few games and say, well, Wolves haven't scored a goal for 6 games they scored against us. Wolves don't score a lot of goals. Leeds scored 4 the other day, but I don't know what their record is apart from that. Burnley don't score goals, but scored 2 against us earlier in the season. You're thinking, yeah, on paper, fine, but we're not playing on paper, we're playing on a football pitch. And that's going to keep biting us in the arse. So I come back round to the question, can we, as a club, as a team, continue to be positive, continue to maybe believe we're moving in the right direction and continue to I guess, apply the principles of the game that we've applied in these last couple of games in the face of potentially some frustrating results that we may well get if we keep conceding goals even though we're dominating games? That's the big question. Are you brave enough to do that? Because if we are, we'll push through that barrier at some point and we'll start to see the fruits of our labour. If we're not, it'll just be a little flash in the pan where we thought, do you remember that period just before Christmas where it looked like we might be turning something of the corner? It's a shame it didn't really materialise, isn't it? It's yet another Crossroads moment for me in the season, full of them. And it really is. I don't think we're going to get top 4. I don't think we've got any chance of getting top 4 if I'm really honest, just because we're not consistent enough. I think 6th this season is a hell of a season when you finish 15th the season before, even in a poor league. And it's there for the taking, really. But whether or not we push on and get that, we also have to start seeing some progress in the way that we're playing. Just before I end the video, and I know some people get fed up of me harking back, but I'm going to do it because it's a reference point. In the 90 to 91 season, we finished 6th. This previous season, I think we finished 13th or 14th and won the FA Cup. So I often think there's some mirroring of that 90 to 91 season in this season. If we're going to go anywhere, there has to be some mirroring of it. That season, 90 to 91, we went away in the League Cup and we beat Arsenal 6-2. Arsenal were, I think, either the champions or they won the league that year, 90 to 91. They won the league. We went to Highbury. We won 6-2 in the Rumbelows Cup, and that was before the League Cup was a rotation. A vehicle for managers to rotate their team. We beat Liverpool 3-1 in that competition that year and blitzed them at Old Trafford. It was a fantastic performance. There was these little anchor points where you go, flipping heck, when it clicked, that looked good. So far this season, when we've clicked, we've not won the games we've clicked in. We clicked. I thought we were brilliant against Arsenal on the first day. We lost. And other than that, I'm thinking, yeah, we clicked against Bournemouth, but we conceded 4 goals. I thought it kind of clicked yesterday. But the games we've won, we've been quite scrappy. We've yet to have that moment where we go, right, that's what we're shooting for. This team's capable of doing something good. We're capable of getting results sometimes, but we're yet to find that sweet spot of a performance and the result where we go, there we go. And as fans, I tell you what, it buys a lot of patience for the manager, because the fans go, right, now I know what we're shooting for. Now I know what we're capable of doing. We haven't delivered that yet. Let's hope we can. And that's my thoughts for this one. Cheers. Glazers out.